So hi everybody, welcome to today's Careers Live. It's actually, I think this is the first of our summer Careers Live session, so very warm welcome. Thank you for joining us. As we are poised to begin the summer break, this session is entitled Making the Most of Your Summer. So what you can do now. And my name is Bridget Lavin. I'm one of the careers consultants, and I'll be taking you through this session today. So as I said earlier, please do use the chat box. I will be checking in with Diana throughout the session to see if there are any questions, and if they're relevant to deal with there and then, I will. If not, I might wait till the end of the session. So please do use the chat box. I can see there are a few questions coming in already, but I will forge on because my challenge is to finish this in 25 minutes. So that we've got time at the end for some questions if you have any. Okay, so making the most of summer. Let's see if I can get first hurdle. There we go. So just to give you an idea of some of the key bits. So this is sort of light touch. So key things for me in terms of what you can do over the course of the summer break. Perfect time when you're not in formal lectures and tutorial seminars. So thinking about building your brand, what do I mean when I say that? It's looking at your impact, whether it's, a skills assessment. Where are you at in terms of your strengths and skills at the moment? What about your online brand? Have you got an online brand? What does it say about you? So these kinds of things you can do a bit of a refresher. So this is also the perfect time to explore your career options. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And I always love to set a challenge. So I always kind of think, it's really easy to come away from a session like this kind of thinking, brilliant, I can put it on my CV, I can get my Brunel Plus points for it. If you haven't got Brunel Plus, you should definitely have a look at that. Go to the student intranet in the careers section and read all about Brunel Plus. Definitely worth signing up for. Any of these sessions that you come to, I think you get 20 points for. So points means prizes. In this case, the onward march to try and achieve Brunel Plus Gold. I'll get brownie points from Simona, who leads the Brunel Plus project, for mentioning this. But I always think, give yourself a challenge, because it's really easy to come to these and think, brilliant, that's job done. But I always think, what are you going to do as a result? Set yourself a challenge. Set yourself a challenge for the course of this summer. And it's, by the way, I get overexcited and I always talk, I love careers and it's what I do for a living. Okay, so I'm always going to have loads of different ideas. I'm not suggesting that you shouldn't go out and have fun and decompress and relax and recover from all of your hard work from the academic year. But it's always thinking, it's a bit like through the academic term, I always like to say, try and treat your career as though it's another module of your course. Okay, so, and what I mean by that is little and often. It's that it feels like quite a big gulf. If you don't know what you're doing, you're sort of looking at the top of the mountain thinking, how on earth am I going to get there? Well, the simple answer is one step at a time. Bit cheesy, sorry, but it really is. And actually looking at things incrementally, it makes it a lot more manageable. Okay. So the challenge is set yourselves a challenge. I've kind of given a few kind of pointers, but the key thing is make it relevant to you. And underpinning all of this is, if you hear things here, if it feels a bit overwhelming, there's a lot to do and you're not quite sure where to get started, just remember that there's a lot of support. Careers is open all the way through the summer. The university is shut on bank holidays, I think, so this week, Thursday and Friday, not. But we are here. I'm across all the summer. All of my colleagues are. We do get holidays from time to time, but you can still get career support through quick queries. So if any of this feels a bit daunting, don't worry. If you kind of think, there's more that I can do, but I'm not quite sure how to go about doing it, book an appointment. This is the kind of stuff we do every day and we absolutely love it. So at any point, just check in with careers, okay? Or if you're a first-year student coming in or a second-year student applying for placement, again, book in with your placement advisors. There's a lot of support there for you. So the reason for the intensity is that the autumn term is a very busy term for careers. So for students in their final year, or coming into their final year, or for students who are graduating, whether you're undergrads graduating or postgrads finishing, basically if you're eligible to apply for graduate schemes, the autumn term is where it starts to get busy. Okay, it's the beginning of a new rotation, a new year's worth of graduate recruitment. So it's really important, I think, that you want to be ready for it. So last week, hopefully you'll have seen the civil service, for example. That's one of my cohorts. A number of my cohorts tend to be quite interested in the civil service. And I kind of think, well, there's a very narrow window in the autumn term. I think the deadline's around the 23rd of October, when the civil service will be very heavily advertising its graduate scheme, really competitive, 15 different schemes. And if you haven't started thinking about it already, then potentially you can only be very reactive. So the whole idea of starting now is to start exploring, build a little bit of kind of maybe commercial industry awareness around the subjects that you're interested in and the areas of industry, the different types of job. The more exploration you can do now means the better the state of readiness you'll hit that graduate recruitment process down the line. If you're a second year student or first year student coming into second year and applying for placements, that will all start picking up in your second year. Don't worry if you haven't heard about it yet, as you'll hear about it for sure in your second year. But thinking about, right, well, what kind of placement would I want? What am I interested in? Where do I want to go? So take control of your careers by getting involved and start exploring now, rather than just reacting to what's in front of you in the moment. Okay, so this is all about thinking about what comes next. And it's just kind of the more you can do, the more exploration, the better. In terms of placement, summer internships. So if you're thinking, I'm not sure about placement, we always recommend placement. 12 months experience in one environment where you can see a progression in terms of level of responsibilities. I'm a real supporter of that. But if that's not for you, then it makes the summer even more important. So you may yet be able to get some summer internships. There are the majority of that recruitment for the larger organizations will probably already have taken place during the spring term, which is why I flagged it for preparation for the autumn, so you're aware of those opportunities coming up. But actually look locally in terms of summer internships now. A lot of the big organizations that have those big rounds of graduate recruitment will recruit early. But actually looking at the local environment, build your CV and covering letter and kind of look for organizations close to home, because if it's work experience, you're probably not going to get paid, or you might just get expenses. So actually the closer it is to home, the more you're saving in terms of time and money. Okay, but just start thinking now in terms of the different events, and the whole idea being have a plan when it comes to the autumn. Okay, so moving on. So this is building your brand. These kind of exercises, sort of kind of evaluating where you're at. I always think there's so much when you're just getting started that you don't know. Okay, there's too much to know. I mean, some of the links, and I get overexcited enough, I put a lot of links on here so that you can do your research and explore. And so it can feel a little bit overwhelming. So I always kind of think, well, let's start with what you know best, and that's your own internal antenna. That self-reflection as to, well, what do I enjoy? What do I like? Now, if you've worked, look, everything is relevant when you're doing this sort of internal assessment. Thinking about in the work environment, where do I feel happiest? Because I always think what you want to try and do is, whether it's a graduate job or part-time job or whatever it might be, placement, try and find an environment in which you'll thrive. Because if you're happy in that environment, you're going to be more proactive, more keen to get involved. And you're going to therefore be given more responsibility. So there's so much positivity if you're in a good environment for you. So think about, well, have I had any part-time jobs? What are the jobs that I've enjoyed the most? What kind of work environments have I enjoyed the most? If you haven't worked, then think about, I don't know, clubs and societies maybe you've taken part in. What do you enjoy doing? What are the tasks you enjoy doing most? Do you like being around other people in groups, and that's where you sort of get your energy, or do you prefer tasks where you're given responsibility? If you haven't been involved in any clubs and societies, now these are all top tips that you might think about getting involved in. Okay, I'm going to come back to that a bit later. But I think, if nothing else, start having a look at your course, what you've been studying. If you've been doing different exercises, different groups, kind of bits of coursework, subjects that you've studied, look for those kind of triggers as to what it is that you enjoy most. And from that, now this is sort of more formal language, I start thinking, right, I'm building my criteria, my set of criteria as to what I want for, what I'm looking for in terms of a work environment. So this is still very much an internal process. The next step is looking outwardly. Okay, right, taking those core criteria as to what kind of environment you think you would thrive in. Are you looking for a local? Are you looking for national, for international? All of these things, pop it down on a piece of paper. Now, remember, if at any point you feel like you're getting stuck and it's a bit overwhelming, from wherever you are, book in for a careers appointment, have a chat with a member of the team, okay? Can help guide you through those steps. From the next step, I think, well, let's look inwardly at your own experiences so far. So look at where you're strong. What are you good at? What do you enjoy doing? But also look at where your gaps are, because actually the summertime's a really good way to try and fill those gaps. Again, I've got a few suggestions to how you might go about doing that. And it's always thinking, right, what am I looking for? There was a student I worked with who got a very competitive graduate job. And we were talking, we did a webinar a year back about, well, how did you go about kind of getting yourself ready? And she said she basically looked at the organization she was applying to, and she created a skills grid. So it's a list of all of the key skills and qualities that organization is looking for. And she said she quite meticulously went out and sought out opportunities that gave her those skills that she would then be able to talk about when it came to the interviews. And she said, actually, it was, and so this is where I kind of said, think about little and often, think about how you use your time, in terms of a career, because you're going to have lots of other things that you're juggling. And she said, there were things I had to say I really wanted to go to. I was interested in terms of events, but I couldn't because I had other things. I'd made choices and I needed to do something else that was going to address one of the gaps on my skills portfolio. So let's think about, right, okay, where am I strong? What am I looking for? And then actually bearing that in mind when you're looking for different roles, what do I enjoy doing is really important. Something I always used to say is that if you look at skills and you sort of take two different colored pens and you kind of get a list of skills and you put one color pen around the things that you're good at and another around the things that the skills that you enjoy doing, the core skills that have circles around both, so that you're good at it and you enjoy, that's probably a heart in terms of really, you want to make sure there are a core of those skills in any job that you're looking for. Reason being, if you just do the things that you're good at, but you don't enjoy them, you're going to burn out at some point. And if you just do that, looking for something where you enjoy doing them, but you're not strong at them yet, then actually you might need a bit more training and support. So that's why it's not to say that you ignore all the other ones, but it's more thinking, right, in terms of what am I good at and what do I enjoy doing, and have that be at the heart. And if you're not sure, there are a couple of different links there. So Brunel Graduates First, you can, there personality tests in there as well as psychometric tests. There's a link there for you can do those for free. A number of those tests will be for free. And then you can also look at the Prospects Career Planner quiz, which is really useful in terms of giving you an insight into, some of those key skills. It'll ask you loads of questions and it can give you a bit of a report, So then the other thing, so moving on from that, so hopefully after this process, and I appreciate this is me clattering through my top tips for you. Once you've got a picture as to, your key skills and interests, then have a look at your CV, have a look at your online profile if you've got one. When I'm talking about online profile, I'm thinking about, so for me, professionally, I tend to use LinkedIn. I've been using it since it started, which means I'm connected to quite hundreds of people. Don't worry if you're not there yet, but keep building that. If you're on Instagram or Twitter, I'm not saying that you have to use all of these, but make sure if you're thinking, so for me, Facebook, because I'm an old person, Facebook I think is for older people. I only use that socially. So I never connect to anybody from a work situation on Facebook. That's just for my friends and family. And that's how I keep my privacy settings quite low on that. So it's for personal stuff. Whereas LinkedIn, that is my professional place. I also have a Twitter and Instagram if I've got events going on, but I keep that very much and it's my professional persona in that context. Okay. And so that's the kind of thing when you're thinking about in the professional context or the industry context, what does your profile say about you? Okay. If you're just starting, or if you want to have an assessment, often students will say, Bridget, can you look at my Insta? Can you look at my LinkedIn and just to give me some insights? This is what I wanted to say about me. How does it come across? And we'll have a conversation around that. Okay. And then when you're ready, when you've got that picture, you're happy with your online profile, you're happy with your CV, maybe you've had a few careers appointments and you sort of, right, okay, I'm ready to go here. Start connecting, reach out more actively. LinkedIn again, connect in terms of social media with the organizations you're interested in. This is sort of moving into the next slide, but it's just make sure that you're following those kind of organizations. So if anybody looks at your profile, you look like somebody who is interested in that kind of work, that kind of opportunity. And certainly on LinkedIn, I know a lot of students do get approached for work through that. So again, is your profile saying what you want it to, so make sure that you might be getting approached for opportunities, but actually are they the opportunities you're looking for? Okay. And I've just put on there the Brunel Alumni Network. So actually LinkedIn has a Brunel Alumni group. So I would recommend that you follow and join that group, because that's a way to connect with people and a networking, build your network. I think from final year, you are eligible to join the Brunel Alumni Network. And I'd absolutely recommend that you do that. Again, if there are the alumni team will put events on for recent grads and for alumni generally, but also the careers team, we will always post opportunities that come through that are relevant to alumni there. So it's a way of sort of staying connected within the university. So from this point, I'm just going to kind of talk through. So I've put down a series of resources. So once you're sort of thinking, right, I've done my skills assessment, I've got an insight into the kind of environments I think in terms of nuts and bolts, the kind of environments I'm looking for. What about the sectors? What about the different industries? You know, so one of my cohorts, I work with business students, and business students could work pretty much anywhere. So I was kind of think, well, you might, if you look at the Brunel A to Z, which I think is a fabulous resource. So in the A to Z, there are just loads of different industry sectors. And there are resources so you can read up about it, find out a little bit more, sources for vacancies, and then any professional or industry organizations, which I think are great for events and networking opportunities. There are often student memberships that you can join through there. So definitely use the A to Z. But if you're a finance student, you might kind of look at, think, well, engineering, I'm not interested in engineering, but I always kind of think, well, if you look at the kind of graduate recruitment, an engineering company, so Rolls-Royce, for example, yes, they'll take engineers, but they need human resources people, they need finance people, they need marketing people, there'll be business strategy people. So it's just kind of thinking, right, okay, what are the kinds of industries that interest me? You know, so I had a student recently get in touch who's studying law, but actually is really, really interested in sport. It's an alumni actually, and really interested in football, and said, actually, I want to get involved in the law relating to football. So actually, that's a very niche market, you know, but actually that's something that we're looking at. So it's just about how can you explore different ways to get into that. So again, it's going back to, well, what are you interested in? And I always kind of think, you know, the pressure, especially, I mean, kind of, I can hear an intensity and overexcitement in my voice when I'm talking about this because I'm passionate about my topic. But I always kind of think, where do you get started? Well, start with what interests you. You know, if you've got experience in an area and it's got to interest you. I had a student at final year who came back to me. It was a new cohort, so I started working with politics and history this last year, which is wicked. And one of the graduates, who I haven't worked with before, came to me, and he'd sort of finished 3 months before, didn't have very much by way of practical experience at all. He'd done some part-time work. But said, well, what I'm really interested in is getting involved in sort of intelligence analysis, which is actually quite a few politics and history students seem to be interested in that. I was like, oh, that sounds really interesting. So we had a little look. Actually, we went to the Prospects website and looked at the job profile. So I just, if you haven't got a specific job in mind, I always think, look at Prospects and have a look at the job profiles, because they're basically loads of different profiles. So, right, what are the key skills they're looking for? What are the experiences they're looking for? And then we had a look at the CV, and I said, well, actually, the CV there was very little. You got a 2-1, great. Actually, I fib he got first. But he hadn't got anything in terms of his subjects. He said, well, actually, when I was talking to him, I did all of my final year subjects. I elected to do security intelligence related matters. So I was right, okay, so let's change. The CV then becomes university projects. So essentially it's a bit like work experience. Your dissertation, it's a research project, so you're showing skills and putting a little bit more information in. But it's, as soon as he started talking about his subjects, it just came alive. And that's the key thing. I think, what are you interested in? That's a really important thing. And then try and find work and opportunities that speak to those interests. Because as soon as you meet an employer, they don't want the finished package. You know, they want somebody who's interested and enthusiastic, and who we can train up to the practical skills, but don't step back from your key interests and that enthusiasm, because actually that's what we're looking for. You know, what does interest look like, and bring that to life. And that's how you can look. I would always kind of think, start to develop your interests over the course of the summer. Okay. And here there are a whole range of different resources. There are more than that. These are fairly general ones, specifically because it's a general talk. I would always recommend that you book appointments with your dedicated course careers advisor to talk about more specific resources, because there will be some. So I work with law students as well, and I could have 2 pages worth of resources I send out to the lawyers. Okay, so it's always kind of thinking, right, but prospects, target jobs I like because, but actually I don't like looking at it because I don't like the colors on the page, but it's really, really useful. There's a source for vacancies, same with prospects. Actually, most of these grad pages there are, but I quite like it because there are lots of articles on, well, why are you interested in, what is it, how to get into this area? What is it that you need to know about it? So there's quite a lot of information around it. I also like it because you can register for opportunities. So you tick the boxes to say what you're interested in, and then to your inbox every week, if not once or twice a week, certainly busy times, you'll get a list of opportunities that are opening, insight events, jobs, kind of placements, internships, graduate roles, coming straight to your inbox, which for me, when I'm time poor, and I'm quite sure you guys are as well, it's really, really important to think, how can I use my time most effectively? And if I can just have a quick glance or whatever's come through to my inbox and kind of go, that sounds interesting, I'm going to go and have a look at that, or pop it in the archive bin, brilliant. Okay. And from your research, build yourself a target list of organizations. So with that target list, thinking, right, the organizations that when it comes to the autumn term, if it's graduate opportunities, or if it's insight events that I want to try and find out more about them, start following them on social media, look for their grad rec teams, because they'll be posting events in terms of the social, in terms of insight events, that they'll be having conversations. They'll be doing that through the platforms. I often get, again, I'm not very practical on Twitter, but I do follow lots of organizations, and I always get these reminders through saying such and such organization is doing this today. So really important way for you to be connected. And the kind of thing as well, so showing interest, if you can say in your applications, well, actually, I did some research over the summer and I became aware of the organization through this, then I took part in this Twitter event. You're looking like you're interested already, rather than in September kind of going, I'm just starting looking now. If you've got 3 months head start on that, you look like a more engaged student. Okay. Again, sign up for news. So sometimes if the graduate opportunities aren't open yet, then you can sign up so that they'll let you know when the application's open. So that's always really useful. So again, I'm just trying to think of these really good structures that will help you when it comes to the kind of the practical bits in the autumn term when you're dead busy. Dead busy is not a technical phrase, when you're very, very busy. And so you just know that you've got those things to fall back on already. Okay. And again, keep in mind application deadlines and timelines. One thing I always say about deadlines is, so for some of my cohorts, organizations recruit on a rolling basis. So if you've put the deadline, then it may well be that they've already given a number of their places away because they've basically been recruiting on a rolling basis. So when you're looking at your target organizations, it might be worth getting in touch with graduate recruitment team to say, do you recruit on a rolling basis? Again, that means the earlier you're ready in terms of opportunities, and looking at and doing your research and your exploration of the organization, the earlier you'll be ready to submit your application. So that's just a word of insight there. Okay. So then in terms of developing skills and knowledge, I've clearly got a very full slide here. So in terms of what you can do over the summer, so if you're thinking about those organizations, you might have that list of organizations and the timelines and when they start recruiting. You think, right, how can I move myself further forwards? I followed them on LinkedIn. I'm connected to GradRec on Twitter. How can I start developing my own knowledge and awareness so that I smash it out of the park when it comes to the application and interview process? So think about what you can do from the comfort of your own home or homes. I was thinking the Forage. So Forage is basically, it's an internship hosting platform. There are a whole range of different organizations. Traditionally, it started off with big sector investment banks, professional services like the accountants, management consultancies, the law firms, but they are broadening out. In the last 3-4 months, even I've seen a lot more programs on there. So it's sort of usually anything between 3 hours to 6 or 7 hours. Kind of different tasks, give you an insight. You hear from some of the people doing the job. So if you're not sure about what you want to do, then it's a really good way to get a bit of an insight. It's not competitive. You just sign up for it and away you go. The one word of warning I'd always say with that is, if you start something, I would always try and finish it within a reasonable period of time. If you start something and you're planning on applying to that organization, make sure that you finish it. Sometimes I talk to students and they say, I've started that, but I haven't finished it. And that was a month ago. And I kind of think, well, that's maybe a missed opportunity, because if you apply to that organization then, and they're looking for people who are interested and engaged and target oriented usually, that if you haven't finished it yet, and it was sort of a month ago, that's maybe an indication as to how interested you are in them. So just bear that in mind. The Bright Network, you'd have seen the emails coming out from ourselves, a whole range of different virtual internships over the course of the summer you can apply for. Bright Network is another good resource more widely for opportunities. And LinkedIn Learning. So Brunel has a relationship with LinkedIn Learning, so you should be able to undertake various different courses, range of different courses. So just put the link on there. So if there are things that you're interested in, if you're exploring different opportunities and there are and you've got skills that you might want to try and fill, then have a look and see if there are courses on LinkedIn Learning that you can do. Other things for me, I was thinking, right, what can you do to develop your industry knowledge? So you remember, again, I said, they're not expecting you to be the finished article in terms of knowing everything about everything and being ready for the job and being able to come in and being able to do it straight away. But actually understanding what's relevant for your industry and your sector is something that's really, really important. Now, what I've included here, so I've said a few ideas. Now, these are more tailored. They're generally the kind of resources I would talk to my students about, but commercial awareness, why is it important? That's actually a Bright Network link. But there are some resources on there. And again, I tend to use them as well. The Today program for what's going on in the world generally, I think is really, really good. And I know that there are of my cohorts that interviewers will use, they will talk about topics that are hot topics, what's going on at the moment that has relevance to us and our clients. And so if you've been following it, the thing I like about listening to other people in these podcasts or the kind of, so the Today program, media show are both Radio 4, actually I think the bottom line as well, and that's it's sort of talking about, I think Evan Davis is the bottom line. So he does News Night and he's on Radio 4 in the mornings. So it's kind of coming up with different ideas, business strategy, media show. I remember there's a student of mine, an anthropologist, a few years ago, wanted to get into the ethnographic film work. Interesting. Had to look it up, but it is very interesting. But actually, she was applying for a Channel 4 internship, and I was driving home after work, having met her earlier in that day, and listening to the media show that was on Radio 4. And it happened to have the chief executive of Channel 4 talking about challenges that were facing their organization and how they responded to them. So I emailed my students, said, get yourself onto BBC Sound and have a listen to that, because if you're applying for it, you can refer to it in your application. So it's just about thinking about that knowledge that you can have that make you look like an interested candidate. And it doesn't need to be that you've got relevant work experience. If you have got relevant experience, brilliant, but think about all of the stuff that you can do just from home. If you're going to networking events, talking to people, and you can say, oh, well, I was listening to such and such and talk about that. Again, people are interested, and people network with students at Brunel because they're interested in, coming to careers fairs, then meeting people who potentially might join their organization. So every single thing that you do, think about, right, how is that enriching me in terms of knowledge and experience? I realize I've run over, Diana. I'm going to try and finish up in 5 minutes, okay? And I put for my law students, I put Law in Action. Joshua Rosenberg is a legal journalist. You find him in the Times, but he's got a podcast. And I kind of say to students, often there's a lot for commercial law students out there, but actually Law in Action, I listened to the podcast at the weekend, and it was about legal aid. So that's for individual people, criminal legal aid, changes to, different regulations. And it was just very relevant to all areas. So these are the kinds of things you can explore from the comfort of your own home, and just think maybe it's in like an hour, you listen to once or twice a week to catch up on it. Go out for a walk, have it in your ears. That's what I do. I go to the allotment and dig weeds up repeatedly, very badly, clearly my weeding, but actually I'm listening to these podcasts at the same time. So these are the kind of things you can do. If you're traveling to uni, have it on the radio or on the tube. The other thing I always think about your part-time work, so getting kind of work experience. If you can get relevant work experience, and I already said, look locally for that, and maybe book in with your careers advisor to have a discussion about relevant work experience. But I always kind of think in terms of skills development, employers are interested in hearing from you about all of your experiences. So part-time work that you do to keep the wolf from the door, it shows a wonderful work ethic, and you're also developing client skills, working under pressure, teamwork, leadership. I mean, all sorts of different things. So I just wanted to put that there so it's not just all this push to try and say you must be trying to get the relevant experience in these different areas. Absolutely, if you can get relevant experience, you should. And so still talk to your careers advisor about how you could look to do that even across the summer. But look to develop your skills and look for across all of your areas for that. And the other thing is volunteering, so actually what I put there in terms of part-time work, I put Brunel Jobs Board because there are lots of opportunities. Obviously, look more locally if you're not close to Uxbridge. The same in terms of volunteering. I put the Citizens Advice Bureau there. That's a really good way with it. Look within your local community, volunteering, giving your time away for free, but you're developing skills, working with members of the public, interviewing skills, asking them questions to elicit what the nature of their problem is, so you can send them the right direction. That's something that's really, really important. And I think there was another resource there, but I can't actually see it because it's hidden by the bar. So forgive me, I can't remember what I did. So I will move on. But Diana will hopefully you can see what that additional resource was at the end. I think it was Brunel Volunteers. How can I forget? Yeah, so look at the Brunel Volunteers website. So there are opportunities. And again, throughout the summer, great way to actually get involved. An additional slide I wanted to throw in there is building a careers portfolio. So a little bit like I said at the beginning, set yourself a challenge. That comes next on. That's the last slide is the next one. But I always kind of think if you haven't already set this up, back in my day, which was quill and parchment, okay, so none of this internet stuff. I basically got a ginormous scrapbook and I used to cut out articles and put them into my scrapbook. I'd have my CV in there. I'd look at my skills. So it's having it all in one thing. So the night before an interview, if you've got key articles that are relevant, you can make sure you read through them. You can see them for going back through the course of this next 3 months. So you start to build that up rather than going back thinking, where did I? Now you might be able to have an online portfolio. You can save it somewhere, but it's always just having something the night before, your interview where you've got everything. You just want to write. I'm going to read through my application. I'm going to read through the job description. And then I'm going to just refresh my mind in terms of the key things I want them to know about me. And if you've got that portfolio, everything all in one place, that's a really good and really useful thing to have. And I always think as well, so if you go to open days or insight events, or if you kind of do some volunteering or kind of other practical skills, reflect on the experiences. What did you do? What did you enjoy doing? Actually, at the end of getting some experience, you might kind of think, is that right for me? Do I want to do something slightly different? So it's always thinking about what did you learn from that experience? So that reflection is really, really important. Okay, so let me see. And the final one is the challenge. Okay, so it's really just about trying to give yourself a bit of a structure, because I've thrown quite a lot at you. And the whole idea is thinking, right, what do I want? What's my plan for the autumn term? Really good way to look at it is, right, how am I going to approach the autumn term? Actually, for those of you who are graduating now, you might already be approaching the recruitment marketplace. All of this still applies, although you might not be waiting for the autumn term. It might actually be thinking, right, about now, what is my plan? How am I going to take, what's my first step? What do I need to do? Probably would start with that self-reflection. Where are you at? What is it that you're interested in? If you're not sure what, again, book in for careers appointments. I've already been meeting lots of students having these discussions. But give yourself a target. Now, when I kind of say my target organizations, you can see 10 to 15 organizations. That's a long list. In terms of making applications, you may not need to kind of apply to that many. But I was going to think what you want to try and do is do your research of that organization. Are you following them? Are you following them on LinkedIn? What is it you're learning? One of the things that the beauty of following organizations on LinkedIn is that when they post something to their feed, that shows up in your news. So you're all in that one vista, you're keeping up with what's going on with the organization itself. Again, you might have those deadlines I talked about. Maybe you kind of be right. I'm really just going my one focus actually is going to be on my online brand. If I'm looking for opportunities in the outside world, what is it that what is it I'm saying to the world? I once had a student who's a marketing student, so business student doing marketing, and he'd done loads. I'd worked with him on his CV, done loads of relevant experiences. He said, Bridget, I've done some work on my LinkedIn. Would you have a look at it? And the only organization that he followed on there was his part-time job. None of the internships that he'd done. And I was kind of like, okay, right. There's a really quick fix here for you, that we can do this. And I should say, so that chap, within 3 months of me working with him on his online profile, he got a job. I talked about the student who's the politics student who's interested in intelligence analysis. Within 2 months of us working on his CV together, he'd got a graduate job. So I'm not giving you these anecdotes just for the fun of it. Actually, it's because it works. So that level of focus can really, really help you. And sometimes, I sometimes work, for example, with business students who are just genuinely interested in business. Of course, higher education is a business. I've talked about engineering as a business, law is a business. So you could potentially go anywhere. For many of you, that you have choices. If you're just interested in a graduate job that doesn't necessarily require postgraduate study like teaching or law or accounting, you can apply for any role that says we want you to have a degree, ideally, or possibly even roles that say we just need you to have some interest and develop those skills. So just think about where you get started. And for me, I always think, go back to that self-reflection. What is it that's important to you? What are you interested in? Maybe use that as a start point. And then with your portfolio, you can think, right, I've got that experience there. What do I like about it? What I'm not sure about? What's the next step for me? And again, every step of the way, looking for careers. For those of you who are graduating, you can work with your careers consultant for up to 3 years after you've graduated. So there's a lot of support here for you.